Thank you very much. Welcome to the future of live entertainment. We have a wonderful panel today of people who are really at the forefront of what's going on in the future. So let's introduce first, we have Francesca Bodie from Oaktree Group, who is head of business development. Let's give her a round of applause. She's building wonderful venues and locations for us to enjoy. We have Jamie Weston from On Location. And if you haven't used On Location, it's a wonderful service that you can use to really experience high-end sports events and other events through their packages, which are wonderful. I've used them in the past and have had great experiences. And then we have Jason Richmond from IMAX Theaters. I'm very excited to have IMAX here. At a certain point in time, we were investors in IMAX. I love the theater business, and I'm one of the few people that in the investment business that's striving hard to keep the theater business thriving, because I think it's just a crucial part of the entertainment ecosystem, and also a really important part of our community, actually, to experience events together. So what we've been talking a bunch backstage about this stuff, because I don't think there's ever been a time, and you can start with COVID as really this sort of like great resetter of our lives. So you go back to 2019, the way we were living our lives, and all of us were going to concerts, going to bars, going to things. You never even thought twice, like what would happen. And then for 2 years, essentially the industry was shut down. And it was probably the most difficult period of time I can think of for the entertainment industry that I have ever seen growing up here in LA and being sort of involved in the entertainment business. So as we move forward, all of a sudden we went from this every discussion is the metaverse, every discussion is your digital life, to live events are back. And what we've seen, and what is so incredible, is the demand is off the charts, which is causing the inflation we're talking about, right, in our economy. So let's get started, because, Francesca, she's building some pretty interesting things in Vegas for entertainment. So why don't we start talking about what you're doing and the way you perceive live entertainment in the future, because what my basic premise is it's going to be very different expectation than what we had in the past.
I think you've hit on a couple of great points. So Oaktree Group, or OVG, is the largest developer of arenas in the world right now. And Vegas is the capital of live entertainment. So what we tried when we started the company is we started with Seattle, right? Seattle is fastest growing market. No one in the room will be surprised that it was lost upon us that they didn't have a major sports arena, given the fact that the Sonics had left and the cloud in the market. So that was our first. I think when we look at Vegas, and we were talking about the fun economy, which I didn't come up with, but it's the fastest growing sector in our global spend. So I think the report from UNLV was 15% of the global economy is on fun leisure, right? People can't, YOLO, FOMO experience.
Well, and it's growing, right? Because I think the younger demographic 100%. Cares about experiences more than things.
Absolutely, and in comparison, the manufacturing is 11%. So you can see this gap that's growing. For us, we've always considered real estate to be that pinnacle moment of the fan experience. So, and obviously Jamie knows this, these can't miss experiences. And I think that's exactly what you hit on with COVID, which is how much did we miss coming together and celebrating as a community. Now, for us on the real estate side, we have to be smarter, because fans are smarter and they want to have tangible and intangible experiences. So the intangible being, how do we prioritize sustainability? How are we keeping them safe? How are we giving them what they want to eat, not what we want them to eat? And then obviously the content piece, which is key. But real estate has to be smarter. The days of 3 levels of suites and you sit with 8 of your friends and those days are over. They want the best seats in the house, and they want bottle service. And honestly, on location, change that, which is how do we create these experiences that if you're not there, you're
missed out. You're FOMOing hard, right?
Exactly.
And that's kind of what, when you look at how social media affects young people and their perception of their lives, it's very much related. Am I there, or am I posting, or am I reading about somebody who's there? And actually, that's why I don't like a lot of social media, because you feel bad, right? You're like, I'm not there. And so there's this huge premium now to being there. And I think bringing in On Location's business and how you almost work together in creating premium experiences. So what are some of the things you're doing at On Location, and also in your venues, and also within the IMAX experience as well, to make it more than I'm going to a theater or I'm going to a concert?
You said something about this next generation of consumers. They puts so much more value to an experience more than material things, and that's very true. They'll live in their parents' basement as long as they can, so they can use their money to spend on experiences.
Absolutely.
And so that's, I just wanted to impress upon that, because it's very true. So when we have, the way On Location works, we work with everyone from the NFL to the Olympics, UFC, big sports, music, and lifestyle brands to create a high-end, high-touch personal experience around that event. So I'll use UFC, for example. If we have, the last fight in Vegas, you can get not only octagon, a seat right at the octagon, but you can also do the tunnel walk that the athletes do. You can meet Dana White. You can get your photos with your friends in the octagon. You're getting food, drink, and you're meeting all the athletes before they go out and fight. So it's building an experience around the event. The partners that we work with, they don't want to take that on. They recognize it's super important for their fans, and it grows an even more avid connection between the fan and their property. But that's a lot for them to manage, so that's where we come in and do this.
Right, because typically venues like IMAX or like a concert venue, they don't really want to manage the experience as much as the event, right? And so that's where On Location fits in their partnerships.
Yeah.
And when we partner, there's more to be created, because I think that there's always been this de-risking on the venue side, which is got to do the pre-sale, get the tickets out of the door. Don't let us have to do more work, to your point, on the ancillary 360 of the experience. Just get people in, get people out, clean the building. And that's where I think our company is totally disrupting, because we want to be partners with On Location, going, okay, great, so you got the tunnel access. How do I get the fan fest in the plaza? What is that? What sponsorship are we going to charge on top of that? And it's always about access. And I think there's that partnership that hasn't been around these last few years, and why we find these partnerships where we want to be in this game with them. We want to make more opportunities
Now,
than
are you
less.
building the venues differently to help accomplish this? Because we've seen this in the theater industry over the last decade before the disruption of, it's kind of just a big cattle call of people sitting in a chair, to all of a sudden I can order food, all of a sudden there's a premium experience, I can book in advance and know what my seat is. And these innovations made it different. So are you seeing a change in the way you're building things?
The beautiful thing about this conversation is that all boats rise in mutual success.
Right.
A little top-line framing for IMAX. We're a global leader in camera technology and distribution and infrastructure. So we're in 1,600 locations across 81 countries. So when filmmakers spend massive amounts of time and creative energy and money to create these beautiful experiences for fans, we offer that at global scale and consistency, and we curate that. And what we've been doing in this latest phase, which we're dubbing IMAX 3.0, which is now opening up these creator tools for a new partner universe.
Right.
And it's wide, it's diverse. We've seen it applies to music, comedy, esports, et cetera. I mean, we literally can off of this stage and could probably come up with a half a dozen or so ways to work together. And the idea is that we sit in this unique position in the ecosystem where we try to help create the most elegant exchange between creator and consumer. And you have to honor the intelligence of the consumer and give them agency in that. And so we're in the business of creating live immersive experience in these sort of decentralized environments.
But what are some of the things IMAX are doing to broaden beyond movies?
Yeah, so it's a great question. We started a few years back with Halsey, and we empowered her to take some IMAX cameras out and create a 45-minute experience. And we put it in about 100 screens in 25 countries. And credit the folks at Capitol Records and Anti-Popular Management team for really believing in this and creating a moment of compression and amplification. So fans at global scale were able to come together, community at scale, personalized environments, buy some merch, get a first look and listen to the album, but really gather with your fellow, evangelist of your favorite creator. And we've since gone beyond that. We partnered with Amazon, with Drake and Kanye out of the Free Larry Hoover Show, which was a really interesting experience into this sphere of influence that we're building, which is it goes across Amazon and Prime. There's obviously the IRL in venue for 60 1,000+ fans.
Right.
But then for those fans who might be in different regions and nooks and crannies, you speak about some underserved markets, we can now create this environment where that fan can now be jumping up and down on a seat, going crazy, airdropping their friends, saying, meet me in the front row, singing along, and having these pop-up parties that have a real personal touch at scale.
So you see IMAX maybe partnering with
Absolutely.
a venue operator and then having, let's say, a live event that you can now watch in multiple cities, even though you can't be in the city where the event actually is happening. And I really see, and then On Location could have events in both of these things.
We were already talking about
Yeah.
what we're going to do.
You know, I'm older, so they have these Grateful Dead meetups at the theaters, and people go. You know, I mean, it's like it's a lot of fun actually, but it's really about community, and that's where I want to bring it. And I think that's what On Location does really well as far as building communities around events of people that are like-minded, and then getting them together pre-game, post-game, during the game. And making those experiences special. So how do you see building communities around different franchises and brands?
Yeah, so that's where we come in to work with the partner, and again, I'll use the UFC, that's the easiest example, to learn about their most avid fans, right? What do they want? Because they're the ones asking for it.
Right.
You made a comment, Francesca, that we're raising the bar, right? We're all thinking about raising the bar. It's not because we want to, it's because the fans are demanding it, right? It's, I don't want to just go to the thing. I want this full experience around it. Our biggest challenge, and we talked a little bit about this backstage, is how do we make sure the experiences that we build can be for everyone, right?
Inclusive.
Inclusive, and I use the example of like that journey. Back in my day, the first thing when you graduated college and you had a job and you're now making your own money, you're like, oh, I want, I don't know, it was like a BMW 325i. It was like that entry level.
I actually got that.
BMW.
Car,
And we're
yeah.
the same. I want that car. But you really wanted that BMW, whatever that top end was, right? So creating that journey, we don't want to think about our audience or our customers only certain age, a certain household income. We're looking to expand what are entry-level products across the most relevant sports and events for them.
And we
So,
think about
yeah.
the same way on the real estate side, which is the fan journey, like
Yeah.
physically.
Right.
And we say, how does a mom of four get through the building, and what is she going to spend? How is she going to get the food quick, and why, like the just walkouts and the marketplaces?
And the
how's the
bathrooms,
avid fan going to paint his face and get on, like dance, all those things. And then on the concert side, I think it's the same thing, which is, and Jason hit it. From the real estate perspective, the rate of change in technology is so fast that I think the age of the building is really showing so much faster,
Yes.
right? So those buildings built in the turn of millennium, the 99, 2000s, they look old and they look tired, and they're 20 years old. And now you see what's happened with mobile technology, cashless, paperless. It's just, they can't even catch up. So I think you're going to see from us a real emphasis on maintaining different opportunities to be kind of future-proof. So whether it's cloud systems, biometric purchasing, partnering with Jason on how do we, because IMAX not only is a content source for us and capturing what we have in the venue, but also it allows us to diversify our revenue streams.
That's
because
right.
the traditional revenue streams of the big airlines or big soft drink, sponsors are not what they were, 10, 20 years ago.
Right.
And so we also need to be smarter. If you look at the crypto.coms and the FTXs of the world, they're the ones doing naming rights deals in our space, which, no disrespect, but like 5 or 6 years ago, I'm not sure many people in this room could have named either of
5 or
those
6 months ago. I mean,
Fact,
honestly, like, it's
I don't want
amazing,
to cast a wide
right?
assumption, but I'm just saying, like, I couldn't. So
No,
I
either
think,
could I. I'm in
think
crypto.
we have to be smart enough to know that we're not going to solve for everything, but how do we tap into the Twitches of the world? How do we
Right.
tap into being the content, servicer as well as a distributor with Jason's technology? How do we create on location? Because the traditional revenue streams of how we make money is changing.
It's changing. Well, you just brought up an issue that I think is super challenging, which is there are so many places that we can get information now. In the old days, we could just advertise on billboards or newspapers and TV, and everybody was there. But today, everybody's everywhere and on hundreds of different sites and platforms. And so having an ad campaign is super complicated. So what are some of the things you guys are doing to connect with the younger demo? Because kind of what we were talking about I can afford an on-location event, and it's expensive, you know, and it's worth it, but I'm not the masses, and so it's like you really don't want to have a concert that's just for rich people. It kind of sucks, to be honest. And so like inclusive events that have different price points are the challenge. So how are you reaching the young or demo and offering them an experience?
You go ahead.
Well, when I first started, I was sort of looking at the symbiotic relationship with digital streaming, playlist culture, and main stage,
Right.
Festival culture, and this idea of how do we take this creator toolkit and this infrastructure to create moments of impact within that just become, giant stunted turbo launches of that product flywheel, and that fits in so that, you see a Brandi Carlile in an IMAX, and then you just want to catch Brandi Carlile a few months later in one of her venues,
Right.
And packaged with an experience with on location. So there's so many ways in which the momentum just carries itself and continues. But when we talk about younger kids, I think interactivity is something that's really important in show, giving agency. One thing that we experimented just literally on the 28th with Brandi was between every 2 or 3 songs, fans submitted their questions to her and she answered in real time. They also had agency to...
Like during the show?
During the show, live in real time. It was, John from Chicago,
Right.
AMC, whatever.
Well, people love that. People,
And they actually had agency in asking for the last song of the set. And so you could literally create your own outcome. And it taps into what you're talking about, the proliferation of the metaverse and NFTs, this idea that you're just creating community that has agency in seeing the stuff they want to see on their terms and not being served things.
Yeah, I was going to add, the obvious one that we've all been wrestling with in marketing is just meeting the consumer where they are, right?
Right.
In getting the right relevant message. So a mom who is a UFC fan is going to want a different message than maybe her college-age son, right? And so making sure we're speaking to them in a relevant way. So to that, we have, and we're all talking about data, right? It's on everybody's mind, but how... the more sophisticated we can get with our data so we can speak to them in a way that is relevant is important. The other thing I wanted to talk about, because I'm constantly studying behavior, consumer behavior, generational behavior, all of that, term I constantly use, and this is to me where we also have to meet the consumer, is like, call this the digital tin man, right? There's no heart. There's no soul. I go on it, I get my sports scores, I no longer may watch the whole game. I just want to get some fast facts. I might not even read the story, I just want the headline. That's the world we're in today, but we also recognize coming out of this pandemic how important it is for the collective to get together, to be together. And so that's our job. Like, we have to keep telling people there's a reason to go. There's a benefit. There's a human benefit to experiencing and get out from behind this and be out there. So how this can be complementary, I think, more than combating, and that's where how do we pull all these things together is really the important part.
Well, and also that is the tool for advertising for the events as well, because when people are there and they're posting, they're your best advertisers anyway. So, having experiences that are post-worthy is really the challenge. And I think a lot of venues don't even understand this too, where it's like, it's a building and that's it. And so if you don't make this cool and unique in any way, and I think the most extreme place I'm seeing this is in Las Vegas, with this crazy sphere they're building, and I guess you're building a venue as well.
Yes.
And I'm excited to hear what you're building, but you're competing in such a competitive, what's more competitive than entertainment in Las Vegas? So what are some of the things you guys are doing to differentiate yourself?
Well, and I just to echo, I agree with what Jason and Jamie said. I think, just on the kids factor, they want us to stand for something, and I think you can't be afraid in our industry to have an opinion. And I think
this is a dangerous thing, right?
Exactly, and it's a double-edged sword, which but I think it's important for they want, to your point, they want to have that experience, and they want to have some sort of, whether it's social good or that they want something that's tangible, that's deeper than what we've had in the past. Vegas is Vegas, right? More is more. Gotta love it. It's incredible. The last quarterly earnings, despite the recession, had the best quarter in the history of Las Vegas. And that's without some of the foreign travelers that we would normally
There's
count
no
on.
foreign travelers.
There's none. Yeah, exactly. And it's just highest ADR, highest gaming per cap. You have the Raiders setting all-time records, and I know
30 years, sold out.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, no one would have thought Vegas had the depth to host the most important, league, arguably, and obviously the success of the Knights winning the Stanley Cup. It's just crazy, or not? I guess
That was pretty fortunate.
But yeah, it was amazing. I think they had a lot of pressure in Seattle after an expansion team getting to the Stanley Cup. But I think for us, when we look at Vegas, it is the live entertainment capital of the world. And if you're not there, then how do you become how do you get there? And so for us, we bought 25 acres on Las Vegas Boulevard earlier this year. We intend to build an arena.
So that's a substantial space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Though it seems to be quite tight compared to
Well,
what we wanna fit
Vegas,
in
there's
there.
like
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it'll have a hotel. It'll have multiple live gathering spaces and ticketed experiences that we can host.
so
Festivals.
the venue will actually have a hotel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
hotel.
Well,
Yep.
that's nice.
Yep, at least I think we're contemplating around 2,000 keys and.
Will there be gambling in the hotel?
Oh yeah,
Oh,
definitely,
wow.
definitely,
Sports
and hopefully a
betting.
big
Get some
sports
IMAX
book.
cameras in there.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, an IMAX experience, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I think for us, when we look at it, this is a game changer, because when Tim, our chairman, was at AEG, he did the deal with Caesars, and you and I were talking about this with Celine, and what was quickly deciphered is that despite AEG at the time taking the risk on the concert at the Coliseum, Caesars was actually benefiting. In $3,500 is like 15 years ago, so you can imagine inflation just from that one ticket buyer. And that left the ecosystem that we're all kind of used to taking risk on. So I think for us, our fan journey, that fan experience, being able to control that you can buy your ticket to the best seats in the house, you can have the nightclub bottle service,
Right.
and you can go to a suite, and it's all truly interconnected into one campus, is what we aspire to, because I think we've seen the success of entertainment districts and the opportunities that a group like On Location can activate in and around if you actually truly have an integrated thesis to your
an
real
integrated
estate.
entertainment area. And that's what we were talking about, entertainment cities, where some cities really get that people are drawn to entertainment. And a lot of cities like New Orleans, basically survive off tourism but for entertainment. And Vegas, ironically started as a place you went to gamble. And the entertainment was like, oh, they got to do something for the other couple hours. They're not gambling. Where now it's really the draw to get people to come and gamble is entertainment. It's crucially important.
When I know you were at MGM, the amount of venues they have,
Right.
it's just, it's the same.
When I was growing up, the thought of kids, families going to Vegas, it was the most outrageous thought. It was, you can bring your children to Vegas.
Well, we had
and now
Circus Circus. That was it. You had Circus
it's
Circus.
completely the
Right.
other side
I know.
now.
And now you have Area 15 and all the tech. And by the way, we don't have any
I
involvement.
mean, I haven't taken my kids to Vegas yet, though. I don't know.
But families are going.
Yeah, they're going.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It really is inspirational to think about how quickly that pivot can be made with the right type of thinking and the right type of partnerships.
You have cities like Austin that are growing and have entertainment areas, but still maybe not as sophisticated of an entertainment area. And then you have cities like New York, which are sort of rebranding and regrowing again, and cities that have strong entertainment areas just do better. And we know from the economic activity that they always complain, oh, sports doesn't really pay off for cities and stuff. It absolutely does, and it's like crazy to think of older venues versus newer venues like in LA. When you go to SoFi today, that experience is so
It's
different
amazing.
than sports even 5 or 10 years ago at Staples Center. So SoFi compared to Staples Center, which at the time was the most modern building, it's like day and night. It's a day and night experience, and I think there's a huge return for investing in an entertainment area in your city, and I think we're going to see more of it in cities like Miami and as they grow.
And back to what we're talking about, Jason, I mean, for us, I think we need to maximize every square footage. And so I think when we look at, you can't have a concert, every hour on the hour, in an arena, although I'd love it if we could.
Yeah.
So I think, as we look at sort of opportunities to create those experiential pieces, which, people kind of throw around, but that AR, AI type of reality where how do we take the technology that's scalable like IMAX, bring it into a brick and mortar space that creates an experience to have people come early and stay late? How do we keep people on property? And I think that's where you'll see the three of us kind of automatically again to all ships rising, which is we have to figure this out or else.
Well, it's like a
people
day
are gonna-
activity. Plus, with traffic and
Yeah.
parking and the cost, it's like, are you really going to an event for 2 hours when it's really hard to do things? So it's a day, right?
To that point, I mean, that's a lot of some of the challenges that we're helping to solve with these connected theaters is that on a Tuesday or Wednesday, whether it be time, money, or distance, you might not be able to get to a large venue, but you could
Right.
get to a local IMAX, and then you go enjoy that experience, and then you'll want to go and maybe take that vacation money to go to the venue in 6 months.
Yeah.
So it all,
I just want to add something you just said there. And this is something that's on my mind, I think about. There is, you said save that money and use it for your vacation. You're making choices too.
Right.
Everyone wants to get back out there, and there are so many offerings now. So that's the other thing that we always have to be very conscious of is I have to make a choice, whether it's going to a ball game, the same night my favorite artist is in town,
Right.
or there's something else going on. I want to go see a movie. Everything is in competition with itself. All the entertainment is in competition. It's not about one sport versus the other or one concert versus the other. So consumers have to make choices. So that's just another thing that we're constantly looking at. We have so much to offer. The industry right now, you read about it. There's a glut. There is a glut of
There's a lot of choices, right.
options out there. So that's just the other thing from a marketing perspective, though, that I always have to remember. They have to make a choice.
Well, and also you're fighting the couch.
Yes.
And there's the most compelling
yeah.
couch content ever out there on, multi-billion dollars being spent on content. So the advantage we have is COVID created this demand to go out.
Out again,
But
yeah.
I don't think that lasts forever. We get this boost for a few years, but then I think we get back more to a normal equilibrium, and then
Probably.
it gets even more competitive as this, there's only so many entertainment hours a day that people have,
Yeah.
and we want to create it. But I think your point is really valid. One of the things that bothers me is I want to go to a venue or an event, and it's so hard to get across town on a Wednesday night to go to the Greek, or the worst being the Hollywood Bowl, which you might as well never get home, right? So, no, I mean, I love the venue, but you will not get home from the Hollywood Bowl for hours, right? And so I ask myself, is it worth it? And I think if there's options, like small venue options with maybe it's a video or
Yes.
immersive experience, even to the home option on the VR, I think this multi-platform experience is the future for entertainment. So we have these choices from sitting on the couch and enjoying the entertainment to going all the way to the Hollywood Bowl and spending your whole day and night there, but now having a venue that serves before and after.
That's right. That's right.
That's what I see.
Yeah.
no,
You're spot on.
absolutely. And I think also the idea that, to your point earlier of priorities have changed. Now people want that front row seat, and not everybody can get the front row seat. So how do you offer different places where you can get that VIP front row seat type of experience? And so it's not combative, it's actually collaborative. So
Yeah, and I think it still goes back to cost, and I want to go back to inclusivity, because I do think one of the challenges that I see in music in particular, and also live events and sports in particular, the difference between cost going to a Rams game or a Chargers game, and it's 2x, right? And they call me and they go, it's $1,000 to go see a Rams game, and I'm like, this is absurd, and what's the cheapest ticket, and it's not that cheap. And we want to have a society that has things like this. And so how are venues addressing this?
Well, I think it's back to what Jamie says, diversification of opportunity to participate.
Right,
And I
exactly,
think that's
right.
a critical piece that a lot of times we can't control. It's a partnership with the promoter and the manager to figure out what is that sweet spot. But oftentimes it's content-led pricing back on the building.
Let me just jump in for 1
Okay.
second. So there's new issue over dynamic pricing of tickets,
Right.
where it's everybody's willing to pay this, but it prices out a lot of people if you have a free market
Yeah.
for the value of a ticket. And there's been a lot of complaints about dynamic pricing, although I think it's good for the industry because you're just paying scalpers anyways, right?
Exactly.
So how does that affect this calculus?
I think it's an evolving discussion. I don't think we've seen the answer yet. It's
Right.
like the vague way of sort of saying it's still being very much an active dialogue. I do think that there's universal industry support that the world of the secondary is not good for us.
Yeah, it doesn't help
So it's not good for the consumer, it's not good for the content and the artist, and it's not good for the building. So somewhere in there has to be sort of a reality check that there's price sensitivity or an alleged price sensitivity, which quite honestly might be that person in their mom's basement on Twitter going,
Right.
prices are so high.
Right,
But like in
right.
reality, like they're sold out. And I mean, if you look at ACL these last 2 weekends, VIP went first.
Right.
So like if you look at consumer spend, the VIP packages are the first to go.
I was just trying to get one for Sunday night. It was $2,000
Yeah.
for one of these experiences, and it sold out.
It's sold out.
Yeah.
And so like somewhere in there, and I'm not an economist, so I have to be, humble in that, but I do think that we have to be smart and really root in data. But I also think that the days of these, our entire thesis is that music can be an anchor tenant. The world of NBA and NHL is great, but at the end of the day, that's if you look at just a normal schedule, that's 42 home games versus 120, unique concert buyers that are in there. And so somewhere in there, we have to give more weight to the non-sports related content that's coming through the building, because before, if you bought a suite, you got everything, right?
Right,
Those days
right.
are over. They should be over, because the artists, and that's where I think you see dynamic pricing falling flat, where people are reselling it on the secondary,
Right.
or there's a different marketplace. So I think we're still evolving, but most importantly is the transparency in the industry of how money's moving through the system, and then being aligned on how to make sure that the fans are getting a great experience, that they're safe and they're enjoying it. They're not overpaying, and they're paying. Everyone's hurting right now with the recession that we're all in. But at the same time, making sure that those that aren't taking risk on our industry, they're not spending money on the real estate, and they're not taking risk on the tour, are benefiting from the upside, which is what the secondary has become.
Yeah, and I mean, truthfully, it costs $150 to fill up your SUV, so paying $150 to go to a great show maybe isn't that expensive. And, so I think if there's a premium attributed to the actual event, then people will pay it. Sort of like the Coachella thing, where you buy a ticket for $400, you don't even know who's playing. You don't even care.
Right.
It doesn't even matter.
right. You'll wait
It
for the
doesn't matter
lineup.
who's playing, because it's an event, and they built a wonderful community around the event. And I think as pricing continues to go up, because there's only one direction for the cost of entertainment has gone up. I mean, so the price has to go up. I think the solution, in my mind, is what we've been discussing, is maybe I'm not actually going to the show and I'm watching it on TV or whatever, but it only costs $20 instead of $150.
We won't have there can never be a gap, though, where the facility is in between the artist and their fan, or the content and their fan.
Well,
like that,
Fish does this well.
Yeah, I mean, but I would say we just have to make sure we stay out of the way, because that is sacrosanct, is that relationship with an artist and a fan. I mean, you're talking about Halsey, Billie Eilish started in theaters and ended in arenas in the same calendar year.
Right.
So as long as we aren't the reason why that relationship deteriorates, then I think there's alignment that we can all have a conversation, for sure.
I'm super curious of the audience here. Is it okay to ask a question?
No, I think we were supposed to have like some sort of Q&A.
good.
And I
Sorry,
said
I'm
5
gonna jump
minutes
ahead of
usually
it.
isn't enough.
I
but,
was just curious, like, if you've gone to one event since January, a live event, can you raise your hand? Okay,
So there you go.
okay.
It's a good number.
What
I mean, I can't
about,
say
I'm
that.
just
It's
one.
the
I
whole
would
room.
assume almost everybody.
Yeah.
Okay, well, what about like more than one? More than, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so like everybody
Yeah.
is going, everyone feels back, everybody feels good about.
Well, we're all here at a conference, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I really push Sharon. By the way, Sharon, you do such a wonderful job. I am so happy this is live, because for the last 2 years we've done the Grill virtually, which has been fine. But I love the event, and it's a wonderful event again this year. But we're all here. I don't think people are sitting here scared of getting COVID. I think the stigma of, which in LA was much higher than the rest of the country, which was done with COVID a year ago. But I think this is a huge moment that a lot of people aren't fully gripping yet, because we're still doing this newly.
Yeah. Yes.
But when you go into 2023, I think live has an even bigger year, because you take all the stigma away.
I think you're false, though. I don't think we're out
That's okay.
feeling super excited. There's a lot of the live events, like I went to 3 concerts at the Hollywood Bowl.
Did you get home?
He's here.
I'm sorry, it's
I came hard.
she. Yeah, sorry.
Gee, sorry.
No, I didn't get home. I came here instead.
Oh.
I can't get back to the valley, but I do want to know, what are you doing to this idea that we're back is false, especially because my job depends on me being able to show up on the set tomorrow, and I have friends that went with me at the Hollywood Bowl who got COVID. Right? So that it's not going to kill a lot of us because we're all vaxxed and boosted, especially if we're in the industry, because we've been maintaining those protocols in order to get back on the set every day. However, we're off the set.
Right.
We're pulled out, right? And it's the venues. Hollywood Bowl is not that great about because I think there's this false sense that we're outdoors. It's no big deal, but we're all still packed in like sardines, and we're still packed into the same venue constraints that were always there. So there's not been any learning from this 2 years that we've been outside. And I'm wondering, you've said a lot, Francesca, about keeping audiences safe while they're in the venues. I don't see that happening yet. And I'm wondering what you are all doing in order to maintain that as we go forward, because we're going to have this, and what we should have learned from COVID is that it's not the only virus that's going to be coming. In fact, it's probably the gate, the first one in the gate. So what are you doing to do that?
I mean, I'm going to nerd out on you a little bit, so I apologize. But technically, we had a lot. It was a tough time for everyone. We got the one thing that we got really lucky with is that we opened with a year under COVID. So the first building that we opened was the Climate Pledge Arena in Seattle. It opened October of last year. Seattle, one of the first cities, right, to get the virus or to know about it and things like that. Incredibly strict protocols, incredibly tough. We were less than 15 months away from opening, and we had to put in more 15 air circulation units throughout the building, which is hospital grade for those that are in the medical field. They're like surgical grade air purifying systems, and to have enough that would fit 800,000 square feet was almost $25 million worth of cost that went into it, which was the right thing to do. We have them in New York as well. So I think to your point, there's the modern buildings that we were able to adjust and change, we did. And I think that's unique to OVG because it was a priority. We've never been in denial that COVID exists. And it's better for us to keep people safe and healthy because we don't want to shut down again. That would be 10 times worse than for our industry. And I don't know, I think we could argue who would recover again if it had shut down again. So I think you're absolutely right to be skeptical. We also know that a lot of fans, for whether it's preconditions or people that they live with or health reasons or just general feelings on COVID, aren't coming again. And that's where I look to Jason and say, we have to create an opportunity for them to experience live their favorite artists or their favorite content because they may never find themselves back into mass gathering. But we're not perfect and we're definitely not there. But I think it's about transparency and also making sure that you're having the conversation. So we have Virginia Health and we have Northwell Health, both the surgical teams in New York and Seattle that are pandemic specialists or endemic specialists, depending on where you think COVID is. And we're in constant check-ins. This is not something where we're like, okay, cool, we're good. We got this. And then, so part of it also is evolving, as you said, making sure we went early with making sure all of our staff was vaccinated, which was difficult in places like Texas. Our building was in Austin and there was an argument that COVID didn't exist. So but we just said, popular or not, stance or not, you took a stand. You have to declare.
You got to do
and
it.
I think those are those commitments that the fan should ask back of the people in our seat, which is, what are you making your employees do? What are you putting around me that's keeping the air safe and circulation? How are you sanitizing? And why? And how is that prioritizing all those other things that we've got going on and hold us accountable? Because it is a trusting relationship that we have to validate. And a lot of folks, aren't there yet. But I think every move in the right direction is good for
But
industry.
I also think venues, and we talked about security because it's not just COVID. There's lots of risks that venues, large and small, face today. And we kind of talked about it yesterday. Kind of went south. But that said. I think it's super challenging managing a venue. I'm not placing blame on any party dealing with whether it be terrorism or disease or what happened in Indonesia. You have all of a sudden everybody starts running one direction, people get trans. So I think venues would be better served, like advertising more what they're doing to make themselves safer, because your company clearly is at the forefront here.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about terrorist threat assessments, health initiatives. Like, you guys are doing a lot of cool stuff, and I think it would serve people going to your venues to know this. Like, because I do agree that, yes, COVID is still a real thing, but human behavior is people are out. I'm sorry, that's just a fact. And they're going to these venues and they're packing into venues just like you did when you got COVID. You went, and that was a choice you made, knowing the risk and reward. So I think that said, knowing a venue might be safer or have better protocols has a lot of value.
I think that transparency part is spot on,
Yeah.
about how the more you can be transparent with your own policy, how you're handling your own guests, or so important. When years ago I was at the NFL, and right when the two teams were coming over to LA, we did a lot of work around Los Angeles, and I learned a lot. I didn't live here, I lived in New York, but quick story, like at one point it was not safe, I learned, to go to a Dodgers game, like years ago. And so what the stadium did, what the team did, they over-communicated that they had.
Oh, you're talking about the police thing when, like, the guy got in the fight and got hurt?
I can't remember, so I don't want to butcher the story, but the point was the team over-communicated that they've got more security
That's right.
than ever before. It's safer than ever before. And this is what we're doing to protect anyone that comes into our game. That
was the fight in the parking lot thing.
I think so.
Yeah.
But it was just, what I liked from that is, like, you can never over-communicate those types of things. And I think your point on the Hollywood Bowl, it's unfortunate, but that's where it's venue to venue, right?
Yeah, and it's tough. I mean, it's not clear lines of delineation. There's not like a mandate, and that was always a struggle for us, as we were rolling up openings, is that every state, every city had different guidelines. And so even just to have a tour go through, it would be like a completely different rider on everything. And I think, I got to tell you, I think Live Nation handled, we're not related, but I think they couldn't have handled it better, given how tough of a scrutiny and check that they were under to navigate. And artists wanted to get back out, and there was so much that went through, and these managers to keep these artists safe. But I think you're spot on. I mean, back to the security, we have a company called Prevent that handles the counterterrorism and red team assessments for 4 of the major leagues, NFL, NBA, and so forth. And what our team does is we go in and try to infiltrate the building. So, like, Jamie might act as a first-person shooter. I'm not telling you Jason has atomic weapons, but he might have like a dirty bomb or something. And like I might come in and just be like a rogue, like a weird fan that like runs on the playing field with like a knife that just like decides to go like nuts, right? And we try to see how far we get, and it's a very private conversation with the building. But I think, to your point, the biggest thing that we do after that assessment is fix it and communicate what you fixed, because the deterrence is the most important thing on preventing an act where it's like, we know people are dealing with mental health. We know people want to be, infamous for doing something horrific. Not in my building, not in my event, because I've done all these things that prevent you from feeling that you're going to be successful, and that's never going to change. We are always going to be actively vigilant, and we should, as an industry, over communicating that point.
Yeah, and I vowed that we wouldn't talk about safety for too long today, because it is a difficult issue, and one, like, there's lots of different businesses I invest in my company, and when I look at the entertainment business and there's such upside, I do think it's one of the most challenging periods to provide this entertainment for people. And I don't even think, you were mentioning like putting on the tours, like, people have no idea how hard that is to do right now, and what risks entertainers are taking themselves, their teams, their staffs, the venue's teams and staff. So it is an extremely difficult period of time to deliver the entertainment to people. And so we're seeing just tremendous efforts, but also now tremendous results from this. But what I do think is, pandemics like this, we are going through this natural period of getting through this. And you're right, we're not done with this. But I think psychologically and just for the health of our nation, we are. And so I think the future is very bright, and I think next year will be an amazing year for live entertainment.
Totally agree.
Sharon, are we
Yeah.
good? Yeah, we're
Okay.
good. So thank
Thank
you
you.
guys. Thank you so much for
Thank you,
having
Ross.
this discussion.
Thank you.
I'm super excited, and I'm sure you'll all be very
Yeah.
successful in the
Awesome.
future, you know?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to an IMAX movie.
Yeah,
Thank
exactly.
you.
Me too.